think that what they've done is they've turned their back on what has allowed them to get to this position.
There was a subset of people on the board that were maybe uncomfortable with me coming back on for some reason.
I don't know if it was a complete merger, quote unquote, like it is.
I get it. There's a meritocracy that people love the openness of what the PGA Tour has to offer.
Some of these players may not ever get a chance to play major championships, and that is a possibility.
If it ever started affecting my home life or it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day that I play out here for a living.
Players who aren't as happy with some of the outcomes, I think they understand why, and they understand why we're doing it and for the greater good of the PGA Tour and the game.
Corporate boardrooms are supposed to be places where suit-wearing executives call the shots. But the world of professional sports has just witnessed one of the most ruthless power moves in modern history, and the aftermath has sent shockwaves through the entire athletic landscape. Imagine calling an urgent, high-stakes emergency meeting to lock down the future of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, completely confident that everyone will fall in line, only to walk into a room where the most critical figures on the planet completely refuse to show up. Brian Rolapp, the high-profile CEO tasked with reshaping the future of the PGA Tour, scheduled a closed-door assembly to force through a radical, sweeping new operational framework. He expected a quick, routine vote. He expected the locker room to swallow their pride and fall into rank. Instead, he was met with a deafening silence and a cluster of empty chairs. 11 of the most influential, bankable, and legendary stars in the entire sport pulled off a masterclass in modern labor leverage by executing a silent, coordinated boycott that completely paralyzed executive leadership and brought the entire financial machinery of elite competition to a total standstill. This was never just a petty dispute over tournament scheduling or press conference appearances. This was a premeditated, highly strategic blockade designed to protect the very foundation of how athletes earn a living at the highest level. The leadership team believed they held all the leverage, assuming that after years of locker room fracturing and outside league rivalries, the players would be too distracted and fragmented to mount a unified defense. Rolapp and his legal counsel relied heavily on corporate pressure tactics, attempting to rush a signatures-on-paper vote before the next major championship could draw international spotlight. What executive suits completely failed to realize was that an encrypted, highly confidential player group chat was already running laps around their corporate legal strategy. That digital coordination transformed a routine boardroom presentation into a historic, high-stakes standoff where the athletes didn't just reject a corporate mandate, they took the steering wheel of the entire sport and began drafting their own rules of engagement to grasp why 11 top-tier competitors were willing to risk massive fines and public backlash. You have to look at the brutal fine print hidden within the proposed structural changes. The new framework pushed to divide the schedule into a strict two-track system, effectively splitting the circuit into an elite championship series at the top and a secondary challenger series below it.
I think we want to be aggressive. I think we don't want the change to be incremental. We want it to be holistic, and we want to do it as soon as we can. I'm not sure I agree with this premise where the players are too powerful. I hear that a lot. I'm not sure what that means. We look to make these changes, but I think our goal is to make events that really matter.
On the surface, corporate PR spun this as a sleek, modern upgrade designed to boost competitive stakes and satisfy television partners. But once you stripped away the glossy marketing terms, the reality was a devastating blow to player security. The proposed system slashed fully exempt tour cards down from the long-standing baseline of 125 to just 100, instantly turning dozens of hardworking competitors into displaced athletes overnight.
I don't think we should ever accept that in golf. I think golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week.
By introducing a cutthroat promotion and relegation system, the front office was attempting to convert stable, long-term athletic careers into a chaotic week-to-week financial gamble where a single bad month could completely erase a decade of professional achievement. The sheer financial strain this proposed purge would place on the middle-class competitor was staggering to analyze. Unlike traditional team sports where players receive guaranteed base salaries regardless of weekly outcomes, professional golfers operate as independent contractors responsible for their own massive overhead. A single player pays out of pocket for cross-country flights, high-end hotels, performance coaches, and caddy percentages that eat up a massive portion of every paycheck. Under the existing structure, holding a secured tour card provides the leverage needed to negotiate corporate sponsorships that offset those immense weekly operational expenses. If a player is demoted down to the Challenger Series tier, Their tournament prize pools get cut dramatically, corporate endorsements evaporate instantly, and the math to simply break even becomes an absolute nightmare. The players didn't view this as a progressive meritocracy. They recognized it as a corporate cost-cutting strategy designed to squeeze the workhorses of the tour while centralizing power into a hyper-exclusive bubble. While the immediate economic cutbacks caused a massive panic across the locker room, the true catalyst that turned concern into an outright rebellion was a quietly inserted clause, hiding in the document's legal fine print. Buried deep within the framework was a provision that completely dismantled historical safety nets for injured athletes. For generations, medical extensions served as a vital workplace protection, allowing competitors who suffered catastrophic injuries or required mandatory surgeries to freeze their tour status while recovering. The new language treated any prolonged medical absence as an automatic drop in the live relegation standings. A torn wrist ligament or a severe spinal issue would no longer just sideline an athlete for a few months. It would actively strip away their tour card and force them to re-qualify through lower-tier feeder circuits from scratch. Recognizing that they were being asked to sign away their fundamental workplace protections, the locker room realized they needed more than just verbal complaints. They needed an unbreachable legal wall. The first major structural support in that legal wall was anchored by the most iconic figure in the history of the sport. Tiger Woods, serving as a key player director on the policy board, understood the exact leverage his signature carried. He didn't need to host an angry press conference or issue hostile public declarations. He simply refused to sign off on the preliminary proposal drafts. By withholding his formal endorsement, Woods instantly stripped the executive board of the political legitimacy they desperately needed to present a united front to public investors. Behind the scenes, executive leadership assumed Woods would passively accept the commercial evolution due to his involvement in secondary business ventures. They completely miscalculated his unwavering commitment to player rights, as Woods quietly leveraged his vast network of private equity investors and corporate partners to make it clear that any modern league built on a fractured, mistreated player base was fundamentally DOA. Without the cover of their most legendary figure, the corporate leadership tried to pivot by putting immense pressure on the sport's most vocal global ambassador.
As far as climbing the mountain, get all the way to the top, I don't think that's a realistic expectation of me. I think that what they've done is they've turned their back on what has allowed them to get to this position. Some of these players may not ever get a chance to play major championships, and that is a possibility.
Very important fundamental question. How do we build the strongest possible version of the PGA Tour?
Rory McIlroy quickly recognized that the proposed two-track format was heavily slanted toward a domestic, U.S.-centric broadcast model that threatened to sever ties with historic international events. McIlroy refused to play along with closed-door compromise offers, understanding that alienating international sanctioning bodies like the DP World Tour would decimate global broadcast revenue and destabilize historic team competitions like the Ryder Cup. He took direct action by coordinating with international tour executives, warning them that the proposed format would effectively turn overseas tournaments into minor league qualifiers. By building an international coalition that bridged North America, Europe, and Asia, McIlroy effectively trapped the PGA Tour executive team in a global diplomatic corner that corporate PR simply couldn't spin away, as executive leadership scrambled to bypass the player council and force a direct policy board vote. Individual stars began systematically dismantling the plan from every conceivable angle. Player representative Adam Hadwin approached the conflict like a seasoned labor lawyer, meticulously cross-referencing the proposed changes with the tour's existing collective bargaining agreements. Hadwin uncovered critical legal breaches regarding guaranteed minimum tournament distributions and structural field sizes, issuing formal legal notices that immediately forced external corporate attorneys to advise the board to halt all voting proceedings.
It's difficult to look at that and say, how did we get here now? In this way, I don't know if people saw it. I don't know if I ever saw it in this way. I don't know if it was a complete merger, quote unquote, like it is.
Meanwhile, world number one, Scottie Scheffler, utilized a strategy of complete, total radio silence. By refusing to participate in promotional media campaigns, corporate-sponsored dinners, or pre-packaged promotional materials for the new championship model, Scheffler effectively starved the tour's marketing machine, prompting nervous major title sponsors to demand immediate emergency meetings with tour management regarding the stability of the entire platform.
I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? You know, this is not a fulfilling life. If ever started affecting my home life or it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day that I play out here for a living.
The intellectual blowout was completed when analytical minds like Colin Morikawa broke down the complex relegation formulas into clear, undeniable financial data. Morikawa mathematically proved to the younger generation of players that under the proposed Challenger Series model, a mid-tier professional finishing inside the top 15 of a secondary event would actually lose thousands of dollars after accounting for weekly travel, caddy fees, and support staff expenses. That undeniable data stripped away any remaining illusions of fairness, uniting young rising stars with established champions.
On the tour, I'm sure you had an opportunity to review all the changes that were unveiled in a press conference.
I get it. There's a meritocracy that people love the openness of what the PGA Tour has to offer.
Respected veterans like Jordan Spieth used their massive influence with major tournament hosts to build a shadow network of support, warning tournament organizers that pushing this framework forward would result in total star boycotts of premier legacy events. Meanwhile, vocal leaders like Justin Thomas and Max Homa completely neutralized internal PR campaigns by taking the raw details of the corporate purge straight to the public via independent media channels. International stars like Sahith Theegala, Tom Kim, and reigning major winner Brian Harman held the line on player council voting criteria, ensuring that executive leadership could not produce a legal quorum to ratify the changes. When the smoke finally cleared from the emergency meeting that never was, the power structure of professional sports had been fundamentally altered. The 11 players who orchestrated the historic boycott didn't just stop a bad corporate policy. They established a permanent precedent that modern athletes will no longer be treated as passive commodities in multi-billion-dollar media deals. Facing a united front of star power, legal injunctions, and panicked corporate sponsors, the executive board was forced to officially abandon the emergency framework and return to the drawing board with direct player oversight. Brian Rolapp and the front office learned a brutal, undeniable lesson about the realities of modern entertainment. You can redesign logos, negotiate broadcast deals, and pitch private equity firms, but the ultimate power will always belong to the men who actually step up to the tee and swing the clubs. The front office no longer holds unilateral control. The locker room is fully aligned, and professional golf has entered an aggressive new era where the players hold the keys to the kingdom.